Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer, rather rapidly, one simple question. WTF is Battlefield 4? Specifically the Rush mode. Battlefield 4 is just this massive monolithic FPS game with so many different modes that it's rather difficult to assess all of them. So, in my assessment of the multiplayer, I'm going to be looking at Rush. Because, I'm going to be honest here, I'm kind of sick of Conquest. I really am. I actually dislike it. It's been, I think, a while since I really enjoyed a Conquest mode. I think it was back in Bad Company 2. I didn't really like it in Battlefield 3 either. And I think it really comes down to the fact that if you want to play Conquest mode and you want to really have fun with it, you do have to squad up with a bunch of people you know and do it that way. And as a result, I can certainly see it being highly appealing. However, I generally don't have time for that. I usually play with others only in very exceptional circumstances. And as a result, I want to be able to jump on when I can and have a good, enjoyable experience. And Rush is what gives me that, at least in comparison to the other modes. There are a couple of others which aren't too bad either. I actually have quite enjoyed the Domination mode so far, which is surprising to me, because that is not really what you would traditionally assume was particularly good in a Battlefield game, yeah? But infantry combat has been more of a focus since Bad Company 2, for good or ill, really. A lot of people would like to say that Battlefield 2 did it better because it had this nice balance between the vehicle combat and the infantry combat, mostly because the infantry combat really wasn't that good, so you had a situation where combined arms became vitally important. Whereas in a game like, say, Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3 or whatever, a vehicle's almost like a power-up, more so than anything else. You get in a vehicle, you kill a bunch of stuff, you die, and then that's really about it. Gotta say, though, Battlefield 4 has done a little bit of a better job in that regard when it comes to making things a little bit more valuable, using vehicles as spawn points, especially helicopters. Can spawn mid-air, which is really nice. But aside from that, I find Conquest mode, for the most part, pretty frustrating on my own, and I think a lot of people will as well. It's mostly just aimless. And it's like, hey, I could capture some points, kill some stuff, I don't really know what's happening, oh god, why did it spawn me here? Of all places. It's because I selected the place to spawn and then got murdered, which can happen in pretty much every mode. I think it's actually worse in Conquest than Rush, though, I gotta say. Anyway, Conquest is generally just a frustrating mess when you play it on your own. Rush, on the other hand, is a little bit more directed, and I tend to find that if you're playing with a lot of puppies, the best modes you can play puppies with are either the ones where you're not dependent on them at all, which is usually TDM or free-for-all or something like that, or a mode where the objective is sort of so basic and obvious that they can't help but be decent at it. And I feel Rush is that. Yeah, in a nutshell, that is what Rush is. And it's mostly because the way that the maps are designed, they sort of herd you in a particular direction. And you can't really avoid going that way. And that's a good thing. Whereas Conquest, it's a bit more aimless, and you can go in multiple different directions, and people seem to have no idea where they're going and what objectives to actually hit and things like that. Don't get me wrong, and there's still some frustrating moments when it comes to Rush, but for the most part, I feel they do it pretty well. Alright, so let's talk about the actual game itself. And I think the elephant in the room to address is whether or not this is actually different enough from Battlefield 3 to justify the purchase. A lot of people are going to say no. And I feel that those that played a lot of Battlefield 3 will notice the differences right off the bat. If you played not a lot of it, or maybe just a medium amount, then maybe you didn't. I think I played probably about 60 hours of Battlefield 3. Maybe a little more. And Battlefield 4 does definitely feel like the same old, same old. It really does. The modes are very, very similar. There have been some changes to how some of them work. The levolution aspect of the actual levels itself is seemingly more of a gimmick than anything else. And honestly, the stuff that's good about that isn't the really obvious stuff. Look, it's a pile of medkits. That's wonderful. Standard Battlefield. It's not the obvious stuff like, oh, you could break this dam and everything floods, or, oh, you can collapse the skyscraper. Most of that functionality is actually binary gimmickry, and I don't really like it all that much. The whole flooding the zone thing is a little awkward, simply because you then have to swim everywhere and use boats to get around. And honestly, boat combat is not really what I go to Battlefield for. And I don't find that to be especially enjoyable. Collapsing the skyscraper on Siege of Shanghai. Even towards the end of the beta, people were telling you, don't do it because it's less fun. And they weren't actually wrong. It is less fun. Because once you destroy that, Point C turns from a really interesting vertical indoor fight to this absolutely horrible mess in the middle of a collapsed section of rubble, which is really not that fun at all. So I don't disagree. I really don't. I do not disagree with those ideas. The nice stuff is the little stuff, like being able to raise the bollards or close some gates and things like that. That actually affects the level in some really interesting ways. And what I also like when it comes to... I'm not going to use the Levolution term anymore because... Oh, God damn it, really? Because it's, quite frankly, obnoxious. But they seem to have brought back a lot more of the Battlefield Bad Company 2 style destruction. Buildings can collapse, and not just the predetermined ones either. Not just the big skyscraper in the center there. We're going to lose this, aren't we? Oh, God, no. This is bad news. Oh, come on. It was like 2 tickets left. Disgrace. Disgrace. Being able to collapse that stuff is great. And you can collapse it while people are in it as well, which is wonderful. And then they will die. So, being able to blow up the smaller buildings completely as opposed to just putting holes in them, fantastic. Really happy that that's back. It was a good function. I feel that DICE had a good point when they said, oh, we don't want the entire level to be flat. Yeah, that's reasonable. Absolutely reasonable. But they did need a few of those buildings to come down. That's a lot of fun. And being able to blow holes in cover is always going to be a good feature as far as I'm concerned. But it comes back to this point, just how different is everything. And it seems like it's a lot of under-the-hood stuff. Graphically, it's definitely a better-looking game. I don't think you can really argue that this is one of the best-looking games that's on PC right now. Or any platform. Well, obviously any platform, since this is the best one, but it looks gorgeous. High texture quality across the board. Great suite of options, which I've actually shown you in the beta, so I don't really feel the need to show you again. Awesome particle effects. Just, in general, everything about it looks and feels fantastic. Which I'm very, very happy with. It looks premium. The only thing that I would say detracts from that are the occasional weird bugs. And there are some when it comes to the actual visuals of this particular title. We're talking about bugging out camera views when you get your kill cam and the whole thing just spazzes out at random for no apparent reason. That's the kind of thing which needs to be fixed, and really has no place in a game that is touting itself to be premium and be the best-looking game that is on any platform ever. But things like explosion effects, muzzle flashes, general texture quality, foliage quality, overall destruction, pretty much everything about all of those things looks and feels amazing. It really does, and it does help the immersion significantly. And of course, you've got DICE's fantastic sound assets in there as well, which cannot be ignored. Pretty much the thing that DICE is best at when it comes to Battlefield games. It's just making the game sound great and authentic. Realistic? No. Authentic? Yes. Still don't think anything tops War Tapes from Bad Company 2, but this game definitely puts a good effort in there. And I'm really, really happy they removed the blue and orange filter because the game looks so much better now. It really does. It's just gorgeous. The Sky Dome is the best I've ever seen in a game. Pretty much everything just looks incredible. But it's still your daddy's Battlefield game, or at least if your daddy happened to play Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3. It's still pretty damn similar to the last one in the way that it actually plays. And the kind of differences that you're going to see are, frankly, only going to be noticeable if you happen to have played a huge amount of the last game. It's like, say, watching a movie loads and loads and loads of times and then watching the director's cut and saying, oh, it's so different, it's so different. And then the guy that's only watched it a couple of times like, really? Didn't seem to be a huge difference there to me. And it's an entirely valid criticism to have. If your game only has differences that are noticed by people that have played the previous title for hundreds upon hundreds of hours, then maybe you haven't changed enough. However, there is, of course, also the rather obvious point. Well, I'm not sure my sneaking up tactic is going to work so well, but here, have grenades. Did that actually go off? Ah, disappointing. However, you can argue you don't want to screw with the formula too much, but I've got to be honest, when it comes to the formula of a modern military shooters multiplayer, I think it's about time it got screwed with. And the way that they screwed with it in Battlefield 4 wasn't really what I was hoping for. Introduction of things like battle packs, for instance, to the multiplayer progression system didn't help at all. For those of you that don't know what they are packs that you earn at particular ranks. They're quite similar to the way Mass Effect 3 did its stuff, and you open them up and you gain a bunch of random upgrades, which are, they claim they're cosmetic, but that's not really the case. And the reason it's not the case is that you often get sights for guns that you don't already have. They're alternate sights. Most of them are kind of cosmetic, but some of them are actually better because they show more and they don't block the screen out quite as much. So there's a bit of an advantage to be had there, but more to the point, unlocking a sight with the battle packs for a gun that you don't have anything other than iron sights for can be a huge advantage for that particular gun. And in the case of stuff like the designated marksman's rifles, which just against all logic start you with useless iron sights. If you happen to grab a zoom sight of any description in a battle pack for that stuff, then you will gain a significant advantage. I would imagine that stuff is going to even out over time, as you might imagine, because people will be able to eventually unlock those sights. But the fact that this is the way they decided to deal with the rather frequent issue of unlocks when it comes to these kind of games is somewhat disappointing. It's like, oh, it's going to be fine now, guys, honest, because you will be able to randomly unlock some stuff that may or may not be useful for you. No, that's nonsensically stupid. It's not remotely helpful. And overall, I just find the battle pack system to be an absolute waste of time. Really is. I understand giving camos and nice little dog tags, things like that. Cool, fine. But sights and upgrades like, say, a suppressor that I don't unlock until a lot later, that stuff is really, really useful, and I hate the fact that it seems like I'm at the mercy of the unlock system. You can unlock it later when you grind up enough experience for it, but we're still having issues with guns just not coming with what you need. Excellent, a battle pack. I should hopefully be able to open this. No, can't open it in this lobby. I should be able to open it once we get into the next game. Why you can't customize your loadouts in this lobby here, I don't know. I cannot explain that to you whatsoever, but it is the case. Don't start guns with iron sights, especially when the iron sights suck. The designated marksman rifles, for those of you who don't know, are basically single-shot weapons. They're designed for high damage, high accuracy, but they're not sniper rifles. And it is my kind of gun. I like using those, you know. It seems like an M14 or anything like that would be really, really cool to use. I like guns that reward accuracy, but good luck being accurate with them with iron sights that block out half your vision and have no zoom functionality. Those are the kind of higher velocity guns that you need some kind of zoom with, and you don't get it by default. Not only that, but if you're being fired upon and your screen is shaking around, you're not going to hit a damn thing with them. So as soon as you unlock the designated marksman rifle, you'll probably be rather tempted to use it, and then you'll immediately toss it because you don't have a sight for it. And it's the usual, oh, use a subpar gun until we decide that we want to give you a sight that actually makes it useful. I hate that. It's a terrible progression system, and they just need to stop. It is really bad. I don't mind unlocking guns, but don't give me awful kit for them. Don't force me to basically go back to square one with a particular gun and grind out the useful sights again. It's just terrible. It really, really is. Aside from that, gunplay seems solid. Some people have said that it's a little bit more Call of Duty-esque now. I'm still finding there's a decent amount of recoil. I always found that Battlefield struck this nice balance between the bullet hose style of Call of Duty and the massive amount of accuracy and compensation required in something like armor. And I find the gunplay to be fairly fun, honestly. Haven't found too many problems with it. I think the only issue that I've got is the submachine guns for the engineer. They just seem to be worthless. Really, they do. There's a lot of outdoor areas, a lot of space here, and you're way better off using an assault rifle than an SMG. You want to use something like a sniper rifle, or you want to use a light machine gun, fine. You know, they come with decent kit to start with. You can definitely make use of them. But frankly, the SMG takes too many bullets to kill anything. It's wildly inaccurate, and you end up just not really using it. I can definitely see some usefulness for certain parts of rush maps that are focused on indoors, but a lot of the outdoor stuff, good luck. An assault rifle is going to murder you before you can kill it. So I think maybe the engineers have a little bit of a hard time there. However, they can use the designated marksman's rifles because they unlock for every class, so I guess that's a way around that. Aside from that, though, gunplay seems to be pretty good. You know? And again, enjoyable explosions. And I like the fact they start with some useful frickin' kit. You start with a support, you get stuff like an ammo pack and an XM25, which is the airburst launcher, which I absolutely love. It's a really fun gadget. And they also started you off with some better equipment on the vehicles as well. So you start off with flares on all of the aircraft. Thank God for that, because that was terrible. Dealing with just guns and no flares initially, it made newer players actually be a waste of that vehicle. Same with tanks. It's like, hey, you've got a coax. Hey, you've got your IR smoke, so you can actually be useful. Good. Yeah, that's a good step in the right direction, but I still don't feel they went far enough. Can I run him? No, he's not going to stay on the roof. That's really disappointing. As you can see, I'm actually using this helicopter as a spawn point, so I'm sweeping over the area and dropping people in, which is actually giving me bonuses. And also, of course, I can get some supporting fire here with my miniguns. So that's pretty good. Flight mechanics don't seem to have changed so much. If you want to fly a plane, you'd bloody well better use a flight stick because it's still a nightmare to do with mouse and keyboard. It just doesn't turn well enough. It's not responsive even with high mouse sensitivity. But helicopters are totally fine to control with the mouse and keyboard. In fact, I'd say that's one of the better ways to do it. Doesn't take a lot to learn them. And they haven't really changed too much from Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3 anyway. Now, aside from that, performance. Let's talk about that, because, honestly, I'm a bit disappointed with the performance on my NVIDIA cards. Now, if I would assume this is more of an AMD-optimized game, based on the fact that we heard so much about Battlefield 4 with Mantle and things like that. There was also a driver that came out, I think, on the launch day, which, maybe I'm just speculating here, but does indicate that maybe NVIDIA didn't quite get as much time with it as they would need to in order to properly optimize it. But the thing is, the beta had similar problems as well. The performance was okay, but not amazing. It was alright. On Two Titans, I'm varying between 130 frames per second and about 45. And it's pretty wild as well, depending on the map. Even if I just turn around a particular area, the frame rate will cut in half. And that's with SLI on. Maybe the SLI profile just isn't that good yet. That could be a potential problem there, but... yeah, if you're using NVIDIA, you may be disappointed. I think you're going to have to wait a little while. Once they're able to get a couple of patches out and they're able to get the drivers to where they need to be, I assume the performance will be absolutely fine. But for the moment, it's been merely adequate. I can kind of get over it because the game looks so damn good, and it's not like it's dropping to like 25 or anything like that. But still, I would expect better. On the subject of performance, by the way, there are some crash issues that some people are suffering. Whoa, okay, in the drink we go. That didn't go so well. Can I swim fast enough? I can't. It's not letting me move at all. Okay. Well, I guess I'm dead then. God, I hate it when it does that. There have been some crash issues. There are occasional lag issues as well. And servers keep disconnecting people, which is pretty irritating. It's obviously a mileage may vary kind of situation, but it's unfortunate that the launch has been plagued by things like that. And that's already been acknowledged by DICE, and they've made the usual kind of suggestions when it comes to this, just saying, yeah, you know, you might want to update your graphics drivers and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, I understand that. And you certainly should, because if you use some of the older NVIDIA drivers, you're going to run into some pretty horrible situations with red and green artifacts all over the screen. But regardless, more needs to be done, both in terms of DICE patching it and in terms of the graphics drivers being updated to good levels. I think I'm going to get in the helicopter again. I had fun there. It's also a nice little thing to do because I can just hang around in the helicopter and talk while everyone's shooting below me, which is a little bit less stressful. Nice chilled out kind of attitude. Alright, so we're going for point A right now. What on earth are we taking fire from? I don't know, but it's kind of annoying. Maybe it's mobile AA or something. Might want to watch out for that. There we go. You go drop on that. There you go. This guy is not too happy with me, is he? No. I have a feeling this helicopter's going to go down pretty quickly. It's going to knock the rotors out, probably. Oh, it missed. This probably won't. Oh! Good lord, I'm surprised I'm still alive right now. I am the elitist. I'm about to die. Time to leave. Oh, killed by the rotor blaze on the way down. How disappointing. What I will say for Battlefield 4's multiplayer is that because of the addition of the new modes and the fact that the maps this time are really good, it does seem to have something for everyone. There's a huge amount of map variety this time around, and they've actually put more maps in than the previous titles. I think this is 10 or 11 maps on launch, which is more than any of the other Battlefield games in recent memory. Pretty sure Bad Company had something like 7, and maybe Battlefield 3 had maybe 9. But the thing about Battlefield 3's launch was 2 of the maps you couldn't even play because they were super laggy on launch, which was extremely disappointing. And a lot of them just sucked. Like, there was maybe 2 maps in the Battlefield 3 launch that I actually enjoyed. Everything else was dreadful. Oh, man. Metro Conquest or Metro Rush 64, absolutely awful. I haven't really encountered too many bad maps. This one isn't so good on Rush, especially once you get to the last stage of it, because it's very, very difficult to actually take the last point, and it becomes an utter mess. But for the most part, the actual maps are really, really nice. They're well designed, and on Conquest, they're particularly impressive in their scale. The amount of stuff, and loads of really nice vertical gameplay, which is also particularly impressive. I've got to give them credit for that. The maps just seem a hell of a lot better designed. They're larger, which is nice. There's more stuff to do. It seems like there's just more buildings to go in, you know? Which is something that a lot of FPS maps shy away from. It's like, hey, look at this city. Oh yeah, but you can only go into 2 of the buildings. No, in a lot of the city maps, you can just go into a lot of the different buildings, and there are many ways to access points, which means you get way less crazy choke points, like, say, on the Market map in Battlefield 3, or on, of course, Operation Metro, which turn into these absolutely horrendous situations where it's just a kill farm. Way less of that this time around. Way less. You've got to be a little bit more careful where you position yourself. And I am very impressed by their map design this time around. And because they've got so many modes, there is kind of something for everyone. As I said, I don't like Conquest 64 anymore, but I love Rush 32. Rush 32 is great, and I'm even liking things like Obliteration and Domination. They're fun. They are. Maybe, you know, there's less vehicles. Okay, fine. But I'm alright with there being less vehicles. I like a few vehicles, yeah? I don't like it being huge amounts of them on either side, because if you're not in a vehicle, you might as well just not be on the ground, because you're about to die immediately, which can be a little bit lousy. But here you get, like, a helicopter, maybe a tank and an APC. Not excessive numbers of vehicles, but enough to make it a combined arms map, which I definitely appreciate. I think that's something that they should be emphasizing, because that's where Battlefield really shines. Some may say its gunplay is not as good as other games, but the addition of the vehicles and the way that they do them, they make them feel authentic, but they're not particularly difficult to drive or handle, is a real strength of the franchise. So that helps a lot. I might be Billy No Mates and saying, hey, you know, I don't want to play Conquest because I don't have friends that I want to play it with or anything like that, but I can still play Rush, I can still play Squad Deathmatch or Domination and have a pretty good time. So what does that leave us with? Well, there's the Commander mode, but it's really hard to comment on that so far because you need to be rank 10 to use it, and barely anyone is using Commander. Right now, we have someone that is, and there's a Commander on either side, but I've been in plenty matches so far where there's only been one Commander. And if there's one Commander, you could kiss your ass goodbye if you're not on the team that has that Commander, because he can call in crazy assets. UAVs, sector scans, so he can reveal all of the enemies around an area, and worse, he can bring stuff like AC-130s in. Spectre gunships and nonsense like that. And they will just pound an area, and it's very difficult to get rid of those assets. I got in a jet on one of the city missions and started to try to shoot it down. That thing took like 8 missiles and a bunch of cannon rounds, which meant, well, oh great, I'm gonna die because we're outside the combat area again. I hate this combat area thing. I really hate it so very much. Anyway. It took a lot of bullets to bring that damn thing down. I can tell you that for a fact. And if you don't have a commander on your side, good luck. I really don't know how to assess the commander mode yet, because I haven't got to a high enough rank to be able to play it. As you can see, we're having the problem of the... It's just very, very difficult to actually pick off anything here. There's just so many enemies in a very close proximity to each other. I think perhaps it does add a little bit, but for the most part, people who play Commander seem to just, like, spam their abilities, and then that's really about it. And that doesn't really add much. It's like, oh, great, there's cruise missiles landing on our heads that we can't really do anything about. Oh, fantastic. I can... What the... Where did they come from? Oh, great. There's a sector scan, which shows where we are, and UAVs all over the place, so good luck trying to hide or anything like that. Is it an improvement on Battlefield 2's commander mode? It could be. Is it an improvement on no commander mode at all? Potentially. But really, it depends on how well it's used. And that can be, at times, difficult to assess. Because you generally don't see that, the kind of really good play in a match where you've got a bunch of puppies playing. In a clan match, I could definitely see it being useful. Potentially. Wow, someone put like a grenade launcher on this thing. It's pretty legit. Oh, it's lovely. Let's go finish that tank off, shall we? Where'd he go? Perhaps he went pop. Never mind. Well, this is something to look forward to unlocking anyway. Overall, it's a little bit disappointing that it's just not a bigger jump forward. Maybe I'm just getting a little bit tired of this kind of multiplayer. We've had it for years. We've seen no major shifts. And it's getting to the point where I think a lot of people are just saying, oh, great, you know, it's the same bloody game over and over and over again. The game modes might be decent, but they're still very much par the course. There is no interesting, inventive game mode added in this particular game at all. No, nothing crazy like Titan mode from Battlefield 2142. And I think that's the kind of thing we need to see. And I also think that's why Titanfall is actually getting as much hype as it is. Because it's finally a game that moves away from the standard way of doing things. There has to be some kind of paradigm shift to keep people interested in this kind of genre. And honestly, neither Infinity Ward, Treyarch, or, of course, DICE have really done a damn thing to alleviate that. So, they've played it safe this time around. That doesn't mean the game is bad. I need you to understand that this is the case. It is damn good for what it is. It is a beautiful game. It is well realized. It is technically proficient. And it is highly enjoyable for what it is. But it is more of the same. It is more of the same. And maybe I'm just getting a little bit tired of that. It's getting to the point where I'm getting really excited every time I hear something like, oh, there's an asymmetrical multiplayer mode, or, oh, we're doing something different with this multiplayer. Because I've played so many games like this. So many. That it's just getting tiresome. And I still have to go back to the point that maybe I didn't play enough of Battlefield 3 to, god damn it, to properly assess this, but it feels like the same game. It does. It really, really does. Perhaps I'm just not seeing the subtleties, but let's be honest, they haven't really pushed the genre forward with Battlefield 4. I don't think they had any intention of it either. It took them a couple of years to get this out, but really, it's going to be a game, damn it, a game where they push out a bunch of DLC, and they sell you Battlefield Premium, and they make a bunch of money off it, and then they go on to the next game. And then maybe we see Battlefront is the one that really changes things up. That's likely. I mean, you know, we are talking about a game that's going to have at least 5 DLC packs. It's got the Battlefield Premium system, and who knows if there'll be shortcuts or microtransactions later down the line. There very well might be. There very well might be. Now, before I wrap this up, I think I'll open that battle pack to show you exactly what's going on. That was a really, really bad round for me. I got a decent score, but that was pretty pathetic. It's, I suppose, difficult to do well when you're commentating, but that's no excuse. Anyway, it's going to satisfy the kind of people that wanted more Battlefield, but it's not going to satisfy the people that were hoping for a little bit more for their $60 purchase. It's like, oh god, I hope there's a big jump forward, and then the guys that jumped over from Battlefield 3 is going to say, oh, it's kind of the same game, isn't it? Yeah. Which is fine, because that's what Activision has been doing for the last 7 or 8 years when it comes to dealing with their franchised FPS. EA's tried to do the same thing and has stumbled upon themselves with games like Medal of Honor. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's not bad. It's a decent amount of fun. I'll jump into it and play Rush every once in a while. The battle log seems to work pretty well for the most part, although we are certainly lacking in Rush servers right now. I don't know why. Maybe everyone just wants to play 64-player Conquest. Again, I can't really understand why they want to do that, but such is the way of things. Let's open a battle pack. Here we go. So I'm going to open this one. There we go. Let's see what we get. So, 2 camos and an R2 suppressor for an M416, a gun that I currently don't have yet. Isn't the battle pack system incredible, guys? Oh, what? Oh, it is actually awful. I really do despise it greatly. I might do a bit more Battlefield. It depends. I may decide that, hey, you know, I found a gun I like, and do a little bit of commentary like I did with Battlefield 3, because I enjoyed doing that. That was definitely a lot of fun. What the? Oh, come on, really? But you just have these runs in Battlefield where you spawn and immediately die, or the freaking buggy comes along and mows you down like that. Then you have these runs where you're absolutely god tier, and it's fantastic, but... Conclusion, Battlefield 4, at least for the multiplayer, absolutely gorgeous piece of FPS action, but it is not going to impress you at all if you are looking for something different. They played it safe, which is not something you can necessarily criticize them for, but it is a little disappointing nonetheless, and I think it means that I will not be playing this for as long as I did for Battlefield 3, because I'll get tired of it quicker. I hate you so much. There you go, folks. Battlefield 4, currently available on Origin or in a box, if you still buy games in a box, for $60 or your regional equivalent. Probably take a look at the single-player mode once I don't want to face it. I'm sorry, guys. I know what it's going to be, and I'm going to hate it. I am absolutely going to hate it. You know I'm going to hate it. You just want to see me suffer, don't you? I'm already suffering enough in the multiplayer as much as anything else. Battlefield 4. I'm going to get back to playing and hopefully not get shot as much. I'll see you next time.